What's going on, guys? Danny here from Metal Couch, and 12 Days of Christmas continues. Day 4. Today we're going to be taking a look at Dark Quarter's self-titled album from 1987. Now, this is an album that has been in rotation in my music library for quite some time. I even think at one point I may have filmed a review for this, but never released it because I wasn't satisfied with the product or something went wrong in production. This sometimes happens to reviews every once in a while, and I just never got around to doing it. And since Vesalith was a little bit of a short review, I actually have a lot more to say about this particular album because I've listened to it for so long. So, Dark Quarter are from Italy, and this album, when it comes in moving into production, is slightly inconsistent, and I'm not exactly sure why. We open up with Red Hot Gloves, which for the time sounds pretty decent. You can kind of tell that this album was made on a fairly low budget, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the production does show some imperfections. Red Hot Gloves opens with an excerpt from Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, which I think is a nice touch, although nowadays trying to do something like that would be incredibly cliche. In fact, I've heard several other bands recently do something like that where they incorporate a famous piece of music from a composer, and it's just grade A cheese. For Dark Quarter in particular, I think I could forgive it a little bit because the album is, almost 30 years old at this point. And one thing you're going to notice about this album is the runtimes on every single one of these songs. Like, looking at the track listing down here, there is not a song under 5 minutes. Some of these tracks can go on for a fairly long time, so if you're the kind of person that does not enjoy tracks that run a particularly long time, this is probably not an album you're going to enjoy too much. But moving into the 10-minute long epic, that is the second track off of this album, entitled Colossus of Argil. Probably the most frequently played song on this album for me. It, to me, defines this album. It is, without a doubt, without question, the best song off of this album. Dark Quarter are kind of labeled as an epic heavy metal sound. I sometimes feel like there's little hints of Manila Road in there a little bit, and some people might try to contest me on that, but I just get kind of reminded of Manila Road with this. This song has doom elements, it has classic heavy metal elements to it, and when I mentioned earlier about the production being inconsistent, that is incredibly apparent with this song. With Red Hot Gloves, the vocal production was extremely passable. No real qualms with it. But then for some reason, when you move into Colossus of Argil, the vocals all of a sudden sounded like they were recorded live in a hallway that's not acoustically made for vocal performance. And I've even heard this song described as they recorded the vocals on a gramophone. That's how old some of this vocal production on this song sounds. But in my opinion, the drumming and the guitar work makes up for that. In fact, this is, again, the guitar work on this album really shines with this song. It's the longest track on the album, and to me, having not listened to any other album from this band, to me, when I think of Dark Quarter, I think of this song, Colossus of Argil. Moving on, we get The Gates of Hell, which to me is a 6-minute long filler track, which is decent. It's not like filler that you would find on other albums. It has its moments, but kind of comes and goes, and it's kind of inconsistent when it comes to keeping my attention. And then when we move over to side B, because this was originally released as a vinyl, we get an instrumental entitled The Ambush, which I can see why they called it that, because you can see in your, if you can picture in your head an ambush of some sort taking place. It has this tense build up to a climax, which just, it's awesome. Pure and simple. A great instrumental. Definitely shows off what this band can do instrumentally. And moving on to the Entity, which is the last good track off of the album. Again, it's more of a filler track like Gates of Hell, but it does not lose my attention like Gates of Hell did. And then we get to the title track, Dark Quarterer, which this song changes the tone of the album completely. It gets really, really soft. The vocalist, it just gets... I don't really know how to describe it. He was belting out on Colossus of Argil, and even on Red Hot Gloves. But then he's all soft-spoken on the title track at the end, because for some reason, we can't have an awesome, awesome closing to an otherwise fucking fantastic album. My only real qualm with this album is the end track, and of course, I could complain about the vocal production on Colossus of Argil, but I think that Dark Quarterer, with their first album, did a very, very good job of establishing themselves, in my opinion. There is one note that I would like to add, though. There was a 25th anniversary edition of this album released not too long ago, and in my opinion, it is incredibly inferior to the original product. There was re-recorded vocals, a few guitar tracks here and there were re-recorded, and in my opinion, because the vocalist had aged, it doesn't quite hold up as well as the original product. If you can somehow, some way, find a version of this album with the original master, I highly recommend that over the remaster, because the remaster, in my opinion, is not worth listening to, especially after, like, Colossus of Argil, as I had mentioned before, and I can't shut up about that song, he belts out vocals, very powerful on that track. The 25th anniversary edition takes that impact away. The emotion, the intensity, it's gone and falls flat. So, don't try to listen to the anniversary edition. It's not worth your time. Find the original. Dark Quarterer, I may visit them sometime in the future. I don't know. Who knows, there might be another day where I have nothing else to review, and it's just like, hey, take a look at an album from them that's rated higher than their self-titled. Which, looking at the list, there is one that I saw, but this is an album that I really, really enjoyed, and at first I didn't enjoy the vocal production on Colossus of Argil, but it's really grown on me. Otherwise, this is an extremely good album. Even with that last track kind of taking away from the overall awesomeness of this album. I mean, like I said, this is a pretty decently long album. I mean, only 6 songs, but clocking in at 41 minutes. For some people, that can get a little daunting, especially with one track being over 10 minutes, another 2 of them being almost 7.5. So if you're not into that, you're probably not going to enjoy this experience. But if I were to give this self-titled a grade out of 10, I would more than likely be awfully generous with this. Probably give it a 9 out of 10. It's a very, very good listen. I enjoy this album a lot, and if I'm ever able to find an original master of this, I'd pick it up in a heartbeat, but it's kind of hard to find. So, 9 out of 10 for me. Danny here from Metal Couch, signing out.